Hi, I'm Ann V, and we're here at Mindful. I really want to show you my meditation practice here in New York City, so come with me. And I'm here today with Ellie Burrows Gluck, the co-founder and CEO of Mindful. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Hi, Anne. Thank you for coming.
I've actually never been to a meditation studio in New York.
What do you think?
I've actually never been to one. Honestly, it's like, the space is really beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm gonna be here all the time. I really live really close. And they were setting up the sound bath, and I've actually just taken my first sound bath like a few weeks ago, and how magical.
What was it like for you?
You know, I think I'm so open to new experiences right now. So I was there with an open mind, and it was spectacular. I mean, you just really feel this incredible energy going through you, and your mind wanders, and I mean, the sounds are...
You kind of go in and out of consciousness. We say that sound meditation, most meditation that we teach here is a little bit like hiking up Meditation Mountain, and sound meditation is like taking the chairlift up. So a lot of the work is done for you, with the sort of vibration of the bowls and the practitioner, and you just get to sit back and receive, which is why it's such a special experience for so many people.
Is there the right way to do the sound bowl meditation? Or do you just kind of go on a journey, or?
I think, as a receiver of the sound, so not the actual practitioner, I think to lay there and allow the bowls and the sound to do what it's going to do best, which is promote deep relaxation in the body. Whatever your experience is going to be is what it's going to be. I mean, we're all having a unique, singular experience in the world, on the planet, so I think it's different for everyone. And meditation is always different for everyone. It's not sort of a one-size-fits-all experience.
I mean, that is very true. I mean, even knowing myself, and I've done meditation in and out for a few years now, and I've done all sorts of different kinds of meditations, and now people ask me, like, what kind of meditation do you do? And I'm like, honestly, I just do my own. Whatever feels right for me right now, this is what I kind of do. Okay, well, I think the kind of the question that, like, I'm dying to know is, like, what happened? Like, how did this come about? Like, how did you start meditating? How did you learn about mindfulness? Did you grow up that way, or like what happened? What's the journey?
I wish I was practicing meditation from a young age, but that was not my truth or my experience. I was born and raised in LA in a family in the entertainment business, and they derive an enormous amount of joy from what they do, and I witnessed that joy every single day growing up in my house. And I thought I was entitled to that joy, and that same joy was waiting for me if I went into the film business. So I did that for a bit, and it was a super stressful environment. And in 2008, I had a little bit of a health scare while I was working for a producer, and that health scare landed me in the office of Dr. Frank Littman, who's an amazing functional medicine doctor here in New York City. And he sort of said, hey, I can help you solve the physical piece of what's going on, but I think that there's an emotional piece that you might need to do some work on. So it sort of launched this journey into self-healing, meeting with different masters, teachers, and healers from different types of modalities and traditions. And
were you open to it?
Very, because I think I was so desperate to find a solution, So
what have you tried?
So I started with ecstatic breath work, which is like a very dynamic, very euphoric practice. It gets you, for lack of a better word, extremely high, but you don't want to like send emails after or drive a car. You want to just be in that experience and continue to feel it. And so I really wanted something for every day, an everyday practice that could sort of maintain, a level of relaxation in the body that I thought would be very, very healing for myself. So I started struggling with mindfulness practice, actually, learning how to do it online, sort of visiting different centers, but nothing really felt like the right fit. I wasn't ready for a new religion or a 10-day retreat at that time, which is hilarious. I've now done a 30-day meditation retreat, but to think of myself very much as a beginner. I mean, we're all beginners. I guess I'm a beginner every single day with my meditation practice. We start anew, but at the time it felt so intimidating. So I thought to myself, what am I able to show up for consistently? Because I was really also struggling with the consistent aspect of it. So I was in my home, and I'd rather like wash my dishes, have friends over, get stuck in an internet rabbit hole. I couldn't make that 10 minutes of meditation happen. But I had no problem sort of in between jobs going to Body by Simone 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I was like, what is the difference in the accountability structure between fitness and meditation? And I thought about this format of being able to go somewhere and, have a teacher that you wanted to show up for and a community you wanted to be with. And particularly, it's funny, people always comment on how beautiful the studio is. The point of the studio being so beautiful is that so you want to be here every day practicing. So it's a space you want to go to, so you return to your practice every day. So anyways, I started struggling with mindfulness practice and needed somewhere to go, and somewhere didn't exist. And I felt that if I had this need, then maybe 8 million other people in New York City might also have the need. So I decided to open up Mindful.
So was it like, in the beginning, was it more like for you? Where you're like...
Yes and no. Like, it wasn't about me, it was really about service, right? That if you could teach people how to sit with their minds, which are incredibly complex, and sit with deep, strong feelings, and also sit in an environment like New York City, then maybe we could help make people kinder to themselves and kinder to other people, right? To help them really learn how to interact with themselves and understand how they're occurring, so when they take that self out into the world, they can occur in a way that feels in alignment with their true nature, which I happen to think, and I think a lot of people do, that like at our core we're good, and so how do we access that given all the conditioning and all the trauma we go through, and how do we relate to our thoughts when there are so many thoughts coming at us all the time, and how does that affect how we relate to ourselves and then to other people? So it was really honestly about service, and I didn't think anyone was going to come, and we were wrong. A lot of people have come through the door, and I certainly, it's funny, I met a teacher here in New York City named Emily Fletcher before we opened. We'd asked her to be on our teaching staff at the time, and she taught me Vedic meditation. And for me, the studio did what it needed to do before it even opened, because it paired me with a teacher who taught a style that was right for me, and I became fully consistent before we opened our doors.
So when you were thinking first about the studio, did you already have that practice, or were you still trying to find it?
No, I was still trying to find it.
See, that's amazing, because I feel like in a way, look, I think, I feel like my theory as well is, sometimes you have a force bigger than you, and sometimes you need to do certain things. I think from the good heart, you of course you want to think of other people, right, and want to make a world a better place. Because I think especially when you're in that search, and you see the changes and you're experiencing certain changes, you want other people to experience it. Yeah. But I do think it's also like important to do it for you. When you start something, you're like, I'm doing it for other people, but I'm also doing it for me to get myself out of my comfort zone, help me to really like commit and to really like solve this thing that I'm struggling with.
Yeah, I think like committing to raising our own individual consciousness is one of the most important things we can do. And obviously change really does begin with the self. And so it's funny that you mentioned this, because in this culture of wellness, we get this like laundry list of things we need to do in order to self-optimize. But self-care can look like taking a nap, not like organizing a huge diet around like what we need to do to absolutely look and feel our best. But I also feel one of the things that's sort of something that gets kind of lost is that if we're just hoarding wellness and only making ourselves well, but once we're well, we're not taking that well self out into the world to help other people be well, then what's the point, right? Just for us only to experience that wellness. Yes, I believe it 100% begins with yourself. And I think if you have an opportunity and the privilege and the luxury of being able to give that to yourself, and then you're able to take that out into the world, that's a pretty powerful thing. So yes, obviously the self comes first, and it starts there, and then it kind of builds out.
Yeah. And what happened to you? So you started doing Vedic meditation. So what happened in you? What happened with you? Like, how did it transform? What is it? I don't even know what Vedic meditation is.
Yeah, so Vedic meditation is a type of meditation that's designed to provide the body with deep relaxation. So it de-excites the nervous system. And you use a mantra, which is a resonant sound that the body really likes, to allow the body and the mind to move in the direction of its greatest fulfillment, which is bliss and calm and its true like sense of being. And so if we can de-excite the body and experience ourselves without any conditioning or without any sort of ego or labeling who we are, and feel what relaxation feels like by turning down the volume on everything that's happening outside of ourselves, that can be a really powerful thing for how we're able to relate to ourselves and show up in the world. It's very, very different from a mindfulness practice. So mindfulness is the act of bringing your full attention to an object. Mindfulness is the act of bringing your full attention to the present moment on purpose and without judgment. That's a definition from John Kabat-Zinn. And mindfulness can be a type of meditation, but it's not meditation always. So the definition of meditation is bringing your mind to an object like the breath or a mantra. So in Vedic meditation, part of the relaxation process is actually forgetting your mantra. And in a mindfulness practice, part of the relationship between attention and awareness is remembering to come back to your breath. So they're a little bit, they're different than each other. They're almost, I don't know if I would call them complementary so much as the sort of purpose is wildly different. Yeah.
So what happened for you when you started doing it?
What happened for me? I mean, my life changed. It sounds very grandiose. It might also sound trite, but I noticed that I moved through the world with a lot more relaxation, with ease, that this fulfillment that I was seeking for outside of myself could actually be generated inside of me. And so feeling your own wholeness as a human being, not necessarily looking for lots of external forces to give you that wholeness. A lot more rest, better sleep, more energy. It changed my relationship to time. So we constantly feel like we're, running against a clock. And for me personally, it made me feel like there was more time, like just more of it. And that if certain things didn't get done or couldn't be achieved, that was okay. And it also really reminded me that sort of I'm an individual having an experience on the planet, but we're all sort of experiencing the planet also. So I'm just one expression of that. And that if I can remember that everyone is sort of out there in the world, just trying to do the best they can, it's a really different way of moving through the world. But Vedic meditation the whole point is to provide the body with deep relaxation when you think about that. So imagine that we've basically been accumulating stress and trauma since we were born. And so you're like, yep. And so we've accumulated a vast amount of that in our sort of energetic bank accounts, for lack of a better word. And if we can figure out a way to deplete that bank account and instead fill the account of relaxation and calmness, for example, then when we go out into the world and we're faced with something incredibly stressful, then our ability to adapt to what's in front of us is far greater, because we're coming from a place of relaxation rather than trying to make a decision from an incredibly stressful place, or trying to react from a place where you feel like you have this much left in you to respond to this thing that seems stressful. Like, for example, your partner. If you have had a really stressful day, or you have a lot going on and you haven't alleviated any of that stress, and you get home and someone leaves dishes in the sink and you fucking lose your mind, excuse my French. Like, it's dishes in the sink. So your reaction to that is probably disproportionate to what's actually happening. But because you're so already filled to the brim, there's not a lot of space.
Yeah, you're not connected to yourself.
Yeah,
you're not coming from your heart, from your soul.
Right, because you'd be like, these are just dishes in the sink. Totally. You'd be like, this is so annoying, but like, I'm just gonna put them in the dishwasher. But when you have the space to be like, oh, these are just dishes in the sink. I'm not gonna respond to this like I'm in danger, or like this person has fully harmed me. That's for me what Vedic meditation does. It provides me with an enormous amount of choice in how I want to meet things that happen in life.
Well, I feel that also was, all this mindful practices is that you have an opportunity to take a moment, right? So when shit happens pretty much and you start losing your mind, and you can go into that place and just take a second and really connect to yourself and just figure out how you want to respond. And I think the more and more you do it, it becomes easier. Like, I find myself, for me, like, mornings are really stressful. I'm always like late with my daughter to school, and it's like sometimes she doesn't want to wake up, and you're like, girl, we gotta go, like, we can't be late. And then you get in the car and you know, someone is like, you know, didn't stop in the right corner, and like before I would be like, sometimes I would be like snapping on like people, and I'm like, well, first of all, this is just another human being, you know, like me, right? They've done nothing wrong, and even if they did, who gives a shit if they stopped in the wrong corner, right? And I have found myself kind of getting so pissed off at little things like this, and like the more practice I do, I'm just like, I feel like you start also treating people differently. You come from like, you come from a place where like you're always happy. Like now whoever I see, whoever like fucked up, I'm like, good morning, how are you? And it's just like sets out different energy.
There's some science behind that, by the way, which is long-term meditators show greater connectivity between their prefrontal cortex, which is worrying about the future, worrying about the past, decision-making, and their amygdala, which is the fight or flight part of their brain. So meditators have been meditating for a long time. Those parts of the brain talk to each other, so you're less likely to get emotionally hijacked in any given moment. So you actually have more choice in how you want to show up in the moment. So, for example, greeting someone with a lot of joy, or forgiving someone, or you know, letting someone do something that's, you're like, okay, I don't feel 100% comfortable with this, but I'm not being harmed, and like I need to look at that in myself.
Absolutely. And the thing is, the person who you kind of do the bad things to is yourself, you know. You get yourself worked up, you get yourself crazy, like you make them feel bad, you make yourself feel bad, and then your whole day goes pretty much to shit. So so what other things do you do here? And also like, do you do different meditations? Is, you know, and really like Vedic meditation, like what is it? Is it 10 minutes? Is it 20 minutes? Like how does that work?
We don't do a lot of Vedic meditation here because I'm the only Vedic meditation teacher on staff. But we have 45 expert teachers, and they're all trained and certified in different lineages and different types of meditation. And so we offer 30, 45, and 60-minute classes. So community members get to come in and decide what's most helpful for their day. And we've sort of streamlined the sort of selection process by saying, you know, this is mindful breath. So if you're really just looking how to de-stress, or, you know, transform your relationship to your thoughts, this is a great class for you. Mindful heart, which is a loving kindness practice, so cultivating more love for yourself, more love for other people, more love for difficult people, more love for society at large. Mindful intention, so maybe that's setting an intention for your week or your day, or a quality you really want to cultivate. Then of course we have mindful sound and many other classes. So we sort of sort of translate that style of meditation so that people can easily decide what's right for them, because they're going to know what's right for them, you know, better than I will. So we give them these different sort of classes for consideration. And then of course the studio is open all day for drop-in. So if you have your own practice and you are, you know, a relatively seasoned meditator, you can come in and use the space and practice on your own. So so we sort of have these like 3 different overarching types of meditation. So meditation, contemplation, and visualization, and all of our classes sort of fall into one of those categories. And everything that we offer is very accessible, simple techniques in a very accessible manner. And I think part of what's special about this space is that everything is given context in our contemporary life, so nothing feels like we're talking about something that feels unrelated to our experience as New Yorkers, or our experiences as a human in 2019. So we often a lot of teachers pull from their own everyday experiences in New York City to, you know, deliver meditation content.
And then, so for someone who is curious, right? Someone who is like starting the journey, or is being like, okay, you know, this whole mindfulness thing, there's something about it, or someone who's like, you know, I want to be better. Like, how do people start meditation? Because I remember for me, like I've learned by doing transcendental meditation. And for me, it was, you know, really wonderful. And I think I learned when I was pregnant at the time. And what happened was, I just was like, who has fucking 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night? Like, I'm sorry, I just don't. Like, that's not my life. And I believe that, you know, if you are fully excited about, you know, the journey, you find that time, right? Like, you really do. You find time to sit on Instagram for like 3 hours. You can find the time for, let's say, doing it for 40 minutes. I did it for 20 minutes once a day, and it was, you know, it was actually a really beautiful journey for me. And, you know, I was pregnant, I moved to a new city, and I was so happy, you know, I was gonna have a baby. It was really magical for me. And I remember at one point, I was so happy that I was like, you know what, I'm so happy. I don't think I need to meditate today. And honestly, I feel like now I look back at it and you know, I speak about it with different people, and they were like, you can never do that. You know, be careful when you're too happy, because you know, your practice really needs to be every day. And I actually feel like that's what happens when I started to disconnect with myself. And I have been disconnected with myself for about probably 4 years, and I just could not find a way back. And then you know, when I moved back to New York, I was like, okay, you know, the meditation is really the only thing I know. At this point, like, I didn't really know about any other mindful practices. So I started meditating again, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll do 10 minutes. You know, this seems like the easiest thing to do. And I had a mantra from Transcendental Meditation, and I started meditating, and literally my thoughts were all over my head. Like, I just could not, like, shut them up. And even if I would be like, this is just a thought, and it's gonna pass, and just like, I literally would, like, it would be like, I need to do this, and then I need to go there, and then after the meditation, you know, I need to remember to do this, and don't forget to work out, and like, I literally, and it was, and I don't know if I was in a place in my life where I kind of really needed to hit, in a way, my rock bottom, where shit was just like crazy for me, and I was like, just going through like, poor me kind of thing, you know. I was resentful and kind of not in a really good place, that I needed to hit the rock bottom to be like, okay, now I'm ready to like see myself for something else, because clearly this shit is not working out for me. But it was really, really hard for me to sit with my thoughts. And I think for me, I kind of, my idea a little bit shifted, and now I'm on this whole other amazing journey. But I find that this is really hard for other people too, because I speak with people who are, you know, don't really meditate, and they're like, you know what, we've heard the benefits, we heard it's so amazing, but I try to sit and like do a meditation, and I just can't fucking do it.
Right. So
what do you do?
So a couple things. So Vedic meditation is also a twice a day, 20-minute practice with a mantra. And I think the idea that any type of meditation you do and then you arrive somewhere is absolutely false. Like, all of a sudden you arrive at happiness, you've discovered happiness, and now you're good and you don't need meditation anymore. This is why they call it a practice, because it's something you have to continue to, and Vedic meditation similarly is an upper, right? We would say, like, it brings a lot of joy and relaxation. And so in order to maintain that, it needs to be practice. That's why they call it a practice. You're always in relationship to it.
It's like a workout.
It's
unfolding. Like you want a good body, you want to be healthy and strong, you work out every day.
So we talk about we talk about in Mindful sort of 4 C's when it comes to meditation that are really easy to think about when you want to build a practice. The first is commitment. It's a commitment. You have to set aside the time in your day to practice consistently. That's a second C if you want to see the benefits. Third C, which are cumulative over time. The benefits continue to build. So if you just stop one day and you're like, I've arrived, I'm enlightened, I don't need any more meditation, I feel great, then then pretty soon after that, you'll probably crash from that, because you're not maintaining with that consistency the benefits that you're experiencing. And then, of course, the last C is choice, right? So meditation, just like we would choose between our thoughts and our breath, or our thoughts and our object of focus, we get to choose how we want to show up. So I'm feeling angry, I get to choose how I respond. So this idea of commitment, consistency, cumulative, and choice is a really easy way about thinking, like, sort of what goes into a meditation practice. But again, like, going back to one of my first teachers, Emily Fletcher, she says that the mind involuntarily thinks, like the heart involuntarily beats. If your mind stopped thinking, you would be dead. So thoughts are a part of the meditation process. I've never had a thoughtless meditation in my life. Some days, based on my nervous system and the constitution of my nervous system that day, because it's different every single time we come to the cushion. Sometimes I might have a more thought-filled meditation. Sometimes it will be less thought-filled and more relaxing. And so I really don't try to judge a meditation practice on, like, this is bad because there are thoughts and this is good because there are less thoughts. It's really, the best kind of meditation is the one that happens consistently. There's no such thing as a bad meditation, except the one that doesn't happen.
I do think that, you do feel certain lightness, or you do, like, if you have a decent meditation, I mean, I've never was like, oh my God, this was like an awesome meditation. It was like good. I do feel the benefits.
Yeah.
But I remember the time when I just couldn't get my thoughts out. I literally was like, oh, my day just sucks still. Like, I meditated, what's wrong with me? My day sucks.
But, like, I think that's part of it is, right? Like, you're practicing the meditation to get this stuff up and out, right? To meet this stuff that you're holding inside of you. So if your mind is asking you to, in that practice, like, to meet the intensity of your emotions and what you're feeling, then we can work with that. We actually have a class called Mindful Emotions, which is where we bring up stuff like this to work with it, to relate to it. And so if we're doing the right practice for what we're sort of, for lack of a better word, conjuring in our meditation practice, that's fertile ground for, for changing our relationships. Like, this thought is bad or this thought is good. It's the understanding that our brain is firing thoughts all day long, and we have zero control over the content it's serving up all the time. And so people say, oh, meditation, I'm going to be able to control my thoughts or clear my mind. That's not true. And so when people sign up for meditation and they think that that's what they're getting and they're not, they're always disappointed, because the sucky part about meditation is that sometimes it feels like we're left alone with our thoughts. So we're really just interested in learning and becoming friends with the nature of our own mind, and learning how to relate to ourselves when it feels like all we're experiencing is thoughts in meditation, or thoughts in meditation, and kind of learning to work with that. And that's why it's a long-term, sometimes I talk about how I'm in a long-term interpersonal marriage or relationship with my meditation practice, and my feelings around it fluctuate all the time and change.
Do you ever want to get a divorce?
Funny.
From your meditation practice?
I think at this point, like, we're probably in too deep meditation and I for a divorce. I think we're married for life. But yes, there are some moments, like, I would be lying if I said I didn't skip a meditation here and there. Like, I'm a human being.
So what do you do when that happens?
I don't beat myself up over it. Yeah. I sort of surrender the fact that, like, life happened, or it wasn't charming today, and I can always begin again tomorrow. So I'm not like, oh, you're such a bad meditator, you skipped one. I'm like, oh, you're a human being.
Is it hard to go back sometimes when you're like, ooh, I haven't meditated for 2 days, I don't know?
I rarely ever skip 2 days.
Okay. But what happens when this happens? Because for me, like, I have this like, timer for my meditations, and pretty much every day, when you meditate, you see, and sometimes, like, I go to bed late. So sometimes I meditate at 2 a.m. So for me, 2 a.m. is still this day. For the clock, the 2 a.m. is the next day.
Right.
So I'm like, fuck. I was like, I am not going to have the perfect 2 weeks. So sometimes that happens, because, you also, like, keep yourself accountable, and you kind of are like, okay, I'm proud of myself. And sometimes, like, I don't know, like 2 days ago, I've skipped the meditation because, I had a crazy busy day, and then I went to dinner with my friends, and then I had some drinks, and then it was 2 a.m, and then I was like, I have to wake up at 7, and I had 3 drinks. Like, there is no way I can even. And the next day, I was beating myself so badly about it, and I really had to, like, be like, okay, now I'm gonna meditate, and be like, it's okay, it's okay, I still love you.
Yeah, I think this idea that, like, okay, so again, that's holding ourselves to some, like, unrealistic version of perfection. And one of the things meditation shows us is, like, we're perfectly imperfect, right? So this idea that we're going to hit all of our meditations all the time and feel great all the time is not real. So when we skip a meditation, we try to be kind to ourselves, like, as if you have a daughter. Like, if she did something that was, like, totally harmless and she just, like, forgot something, you wouldn't be like, you're the worst, you forgot that. You'd be like, it's fine. It's totally fine, it doesn't matter. Or she spills milk, you're going to be like, that's totally fine. So this idea that we would be kind to ourselves and be like, it's okay. Like, a lot of life happened and we skipped a meditation. So what happens for me is if I skip too many, I'll begin to feel almost like a withdrawal symptom, because it's this type of meditation I practice is so pleasurable and so deeply relaxing, and the brain chemistry loves it so much, that when you skip it, you can feel really lethargic, like super tired, or you can feel like almost like I have a headache. And so at that point, I'm kind of like, okay, I need to sit. And maybe because my nervous system feels a little overloaded, that first meditation feels slightly unpleasant. When you sort of pick it back up again, but generally I try to, like, maintain enough consistency where that doesn't happen. But again, like, if you travel and you're on a different time zone, or you have 10 days to see a new city, or you're even driving an hour to spend time with your family, and you realize a whole day went by and you didn't meditate, but you've spent quality time with people you love, I have no problem with that. I think that, like I said, life happens, and there's no such thing as perfect.
And, I think for people who, well, the hardest thing for something like this is also finding the time, right? I do think that you can find it, but I think it's really hard to start, right? Like, so for me, one of the things was like, so I have to wake up at like 6:45, 7 in the morning to bring my daughter to school. After she goes to school, I either have meetings or I go to work out, and your day just goes, and then she comes home, and then it's like night, and maybe you'll go have, out for dinner, and you're like, and now it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I need to wake up at 7.
Yeah.
So where do you do it? So for me, my thing is I was speaking to a friend, because I've always been like, I need to do like at least 10 minutes to like make me feel better, And then my friend was like, listen, start with a minute, start with 2 minutes, start with 5 minutes, like whatever you can do, like 7 o'clock and 6:45 is not that different. So that's what I started to do, and that really like works for me, where, I'm like, you know what, even if I'm gonna do just 2 minutes and I'm gonna do it for a month, you're gonna see a difference, you're gonna feel a difference. And now I get to a point where like sometimes I meditate in the morning, and I kind of like before going to bed, I'm like, I kind of really want to meditate again. Sometimes I do like 5 minutes, and it's kind of really short. And is there ways that, for people who are like busy moms, people like, what advice do you give?
Yeah, so a couple things. So most of the science shows, the reason people are like 10 minutes is most of the science shows that you need a minimum of 10 minutes a day for 8 to 10 weeks to really see the benefits. So this is why we focus on this like 10-minute mark. But someone who is going to be a mom come June. Which is really exciting. Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about this because my life is about to like fundamentally fully change. I know. So exciting. Thank you.
So happy.
Thanks. I know, it's good. I know.
Do we know who it's going to be?
No, we're going to be surprised. We're going to be surprised.
That's surprised.
I saved that for camera. When we were like talking about what should we wear, I was like, oh my god, I have very limited options in the jeans department right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you wearing like a maternity one?
No, I'm wearing one more day, and then I probably can't make it anymore.
Girl, just pop in the maternity.
I know, I have a pair at home.
They're so good. You're like, why didn't I do it earlier?
I know.
Do you want to unbutton like
I was
a
thinking
top?
about it.
I mean, I could do it.
No, I know. I
just
couldn't
do
see.
it.
It's just it's very tight.
Just open it. Who cares? No one's gonna see it. Wait,
Fine,
cut it out.
Oh no, I'll open my button. But anyway, so I'm very limited on options for jeans at the moment. But anyway, so I've been thinking a lot about this because I've taught a lot of moms meditation, and we sort of, I like to kind of throw out the rules when you're caregiving for a child or someone's survival depends on you. I think the rules are really different. So if you get in 1 minute, 2 minute, I'm happy with that, and if that makes you feel good, that's wonderful. And so really for most of my moms, it's kind of like you're getting up earlier before your kid. And sometimes you can do that on a night when you've gotten enough sleep or your kid went to bed early, but sometimes you can't.
And sometimes you're like, shit, they might wake up at 6:45, and my alarm is at 6:55 for my meditation. And knowing that meditating as a kid sucks.
Yeah. So
and I've actually learned how to embrace it too, because I'm like, you know what? You're like, every single thing about it bothers. Like, even if my daughter sits with me, she goes like this.
Yeah. That's so cute.
And I think it's honestly, I feel grateful because I was like,
I'd rather have her do that and want to like touch you while you're meditating than like not.
No. I mean, I didn't learn how to like meditate till I was like 28, but now I find beauty in it, and I'm like, you know what? My mind is trying to fuck with me, and I'm not gonna let it, and I'm still gonna focus, and even if it's not gonna be perfect, I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah. Exactly. So I often will like strategize with especially moms about like when to do it. So like you drop your kids off at school, and if the weather is nice in New York City, you can meditate on a park bench before you go home, before you get back into your emails and all the things you need to do at home.
Totally. What if the weather sucks?
The weather sucks. A hotel lobby is really good in New York City.
So I heard the church.
Church is great. Generally with meditation, we take a neutral attitude towards noise. So even if Alaska's going like this, part of the practice is allowing her to do that and still being able to work with your meditation practice, right? So even though it's like it is, you're like, oh my God, that's a part of the practice, right? Your relationship to that, your ability to sort of like relate to the sound in a neutral way, like not be like, oh, that's a bad sound, or like our meditation, or that's a good sound, but we take a neutral attitude towards it. And then often sometimes if you are with a partner, maybe you ask your partner to take your kids to the park or something, or, you know, hey, can you do this for 10 minutes while I go into the room and have like 10 minutes of meditation, just try to keep them from banging on the door and I'll be out in 10 minutes or whatever. So I thought a lot about how much my meditation practice is probably going to fundamentally change in the second half of next year, and you just kind of have to be okay with it. And
we're going to need to do another interview. I'll be like, Ellie, how do you do it now?
Yeah. So I think that that's okay. And it's really interesting because in my particular tradition, you're really only supposed to meditate twice a day for 20 minutes. But when you're pregnant, they allow you to meditate for as much or as long as is comfortable, because it's so relaxing for the body. So all the rules go out the window, including if you're not feeling charmed to practice your meditation practice, you don't have to. You could skip like 6 days if you were like, I'm too nauseous, or I just want to sleep, that would be fine. So I tend to think when you're either an expectant mom or you are a mom, a lot of the rules kind of go out the window. And also for dads, like I don't want to just like gender it and make it just about moms, because there are fathers who are caring for their daughters or sons, and they're included in that. I think when, like I said, when someone else's survival depends on you, I think you have to be pretty flexible with when you're meditating. Yeah.
Does your husband meditate?
He doesn't, but we've been together, as we were talking about before, for probably almost 6 years, and I think he's going to learn in 2020, which is like...
Really?
Yeah, I really believe in just leading by example and not forcing people to do things.
How did
so I'm hoping he's coming around.
How did it make you feel? Because I think a part of it too is like, you're like, dude, I'm feeling amazing. And like, let's say like, you know, you see them, I mean, I don't know whether he's struggling or not, but like you see some people struggling,
I think we're all struggling. I think it's fair to say that almost everybody is struggling in life,
But I do think that you have more, you know, when you are really mindful and connected to yourself, you have more tools, because you're just like, I just need to chill the fuck out, take a breath. I know shit within myself, like, but I think when people are not, you're just like, oh, can I help you? I want to help you so much, but you're not listening to me. So was it frustrating for you?
So I have a little saying that I think is really helpful, and people's eyes tend to light up when I say it to people who are in partnership with someone. I say, you know, not having rigid attachment to your partner's spiritual practice is a practice in and of itself, right? So, see, I get that a lot. So, yeah. So it's this idea that like everyone is truly on their own path and their own journey in this life, and what is right for me might not be right for him just because we're married. And I don't get to be an authority on what's gonna bring him to his own, expansion of his own consciousness. I only know what's right for me. So, if I continue to be devoted to my meditation practice, and he continues to experience the benefits of that practice because he's living with someone who, has an ability to self-regulate their emotions in a more constructive manner, or someone who has a different relationship to sleep, and he'll be like, oh, when Harry met Sally, like, I'll have what she's having, and let that person come to it themselves. And because I think just putting stress and pressure on your partner to change, it's actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's almost a form of criticism, right? Like, if you just did this, you wouldn't be like this. Yeah. And the truth is like, man, I just want to love him and love where he's at on his own path, and be a source of support and have compassion for him. And, I think, he'll find his own way. So I think I went through a period where I was like, oh, I want to do this with you. Like, it was my way of wanting to be in deeper partnership.
Well, you also want to be, you want to be connected,
And then I was like, well, I can't measure our connectivity around this. And that seems like such a silly thing to measure. And actually, there's in our tradition also, there's this lecture that a senior teacher does, and he talks about how when you first meet someone and you're first dating someone, you'll be like, oh, you like chocolate? I like chocolate. Oh, you like to ski? I like to ski. Oh, you like New York City? I like New York City. You're fucking falling in love with yourself. You like everything about that person that you are. It's really, what's interesting about that is it's not really about the other person. You're just seeing yourself in that individual and being like, oh my, you're feeling this oneness. Like, they're the same as you. And that's true. In some ways they are. They're made of the same stardust that we're all made of, and that's true on like a scientific level, but we're also having these individual experiences. So partnership is really, I think, about reconciling this relationship between that individuality of that other person and the oneness. So I always think there are three people in a relationship. Sometimes there really are three people in a relationship, but in my relationship, it's me, it's him, and it's the us together. And so I have to, not force an agenda on him, and I think that that's probably for the best of everyone who's in it.
And I think my last question is if someone is really curious, right?
Yeah.
They're at home, they're not in a place where they can come to a studio, or they're just like, you know what, it sounds crazy to me to come to a studio and meditate for 30 minutes. I'm going to lose my fucking shit. How do they start? Is there things that you can suggest, recommend?
I'm going to do a shameless plug, which is that we have Mindful Video, which is on-demand video channel where you can sit with all of our teachers for different lengths of time. So everything from like a 30-second quick fix to a 30-minute meditation with all of our different themes, and it features all of our different teachers, and we can help you sort of build your journey through that. Mindful also goes to people's offices. So if you are in a major metropolitan area, you can talk to your HR and see if they'll bring it in so that everyone takes a lunch break together and practice meditation. It's great actually for, relationships between colleagues and even increasing performance at work. And
it's like a team building thing.
Yeah, team building
totally.
and stress relieving and like everyone gets to take a break and stuff like that. So I would say Mindful Video is an amazing place to start. I also really like the app Insight Timer, which I think is great and features a lot of incredible teachers.
That's the one I have.
A lot of teachers I admire are on that app, and I think it's fantastic. So I would say that. So if you don't have access to an in-person studio, there is no shortage of great meditation content out there, obviously starting with Mindful. But yeah, I'd say start there and really find a styler or teacher you connect with, because you're going to want to return to that person and return to their voice, return to their style. I think that's also pretty important.
Do you think it can be self-taught?
No. I think that
you need to start with some sort of.
Yes, I think you need some sort of foundation of something that's been time tested and proven to work. If you really, really want to see the benefits over time, do I think that a deep breath works? Yes, of course. Do I think that I heard that if I just bring my attention to the breath, for 30 seconds or a minute, that works. Yes, but to really advance your practice or go deeper, you really need someone who's further down the road than you to show you the way. And that's part of why Mindful has teachers at the front of the room, so that you can ask them all sorts of questions. Like, is it normal that my leg falls asleep? Is it normal that I'm thinking thoughts all the time? So there's no one to really help you normalize your experience. If you're just trying to do it on your own, you're not really getting your questions answered in the same way. So I think if you have access to a live teacher, that is always my personal preference. I think it's pretty tough to self-teach yourself. I think you could read about it in a book and get to a certain place, but I think at the end of the day, it's super helpful to have someone who can hold your hand.
For me, I've never really, I've never really talked about meditation with anyone. So, I think for someone who is trying to be practicing and trying to find my own way,
we're all there with you.
Yeah.
We're always, I'm trying to practice too, and also trying to find my own way. So it's just nice to be able to be open about that and vulnerable about it.
Totally. And it's nice to connect and just to know that really there's no perfect way, and we're just all doing our best.
We really are.
Thank you. I'm so excited for you guys. Oh
Thank
my
you so
God.
much. Oh, thank you for coming in.